Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the statements, presumably authorised by Dominic Raab, deputising for the recovering Boris Johnson and a hardline Brexiteer, regarding our approach to the transition period. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, basically, a spokesperson for the British government has given the following statement this week. It says, and I'll quote, "We will not ask to extend the transition, and if the EU asks, we will say no. Extending the transition would simply prolong the negotiations, prolong business uncertainty, and delay the moment of control of our borders. It would also keep us bound by EU legislation at a point when we need legislative and economic flexibility to manage the UK response to the coronavirus pandemic." So let's take down those points one by one. One, the negotiations are being prolonged because they are behind schedule. That's all there is to it. Not only has nothing been agreed so far, and we're inside the second quarter of the transition period now, but no progress has been made on any point whatsoever. Two, business is incredibly uncertain. Extending the transition period would give it some certainty. If we extend the transition period, businesses would know the procedures and the rules for trading into next year. Now they have no idea. And where will they be able to get their raw materials from? How long will it take? What will it cost? They have no idea, because the general uncertainty that comes with the mother of all global recessions is going to be compounded with the uncertainty on what is our trading relationship with the world. We know what it is now. We have no idea what it is. And remember, this doesn't just affect the EU. Once we're out of the transition period, our arrangements with lots of other countries also falls by the wayside. Consider this, because of the coronavirus, the world is going into recession. EU countries are going to need to manage their economies back to growth. There will be a lot of pressure to buy EU in such an environment. They will help each other out. The same attitude will also prevail in other trading blocs around the world. We will be the outcast. We will be one of the only countries not in a trading bloc. So not only will UK-based businesses not know the rules for trading, they will be much less likely to be able to find customers beyond simply the tariffs that are going to be slapped on their goods as well. I will remind people that we make money by exporting, not importing. 3. The idea that we are delaying control of our borders is laughable now. We have seen very recently just how much control individual member states have over their borders, as they all restricted or closed them down weeks before we took any action in the UK. The whole concept of the EU controlling national borders was always a lie, but I don't know what sort of imbecile you have to be with your head stuck in the sand to believe that after the evidence of the last few weeks. 4. They say it would keep us bound to EU legislation. Well, this is the first point that's actually correct. Sure, yes it would. But they don't say which legislation would somehow be a barrier to our economic recovery. After all, if there were legislation that makes it difficult to deal with the economic damage of the coronavirus pandemic, and in theory it could be, maybe there's some laws in there that didn't take into account something this serious. Okay, fine. Say what it is, but surely then other EU countries would want that law changed extremely quickly, because they're also affected by the coronavirus. They've also gone into lockdowns. The major nations of Europe have all had to go into some sort of lockdown, which has hampered their economy in exactly the same way as the UK. So anything that would be harmful to the UK would be harmful to them, and they would seek to change it. So that is still a ridiculous statement. But the take home from this is simply that the government are now making it politically impossible to seek an extension. They have painted themselves very deliberately into a corner. They tried conning people into thinking it would be legally impossible to extend the transition period after June. The end of June is stated in the legally binding portion of the withdrawal agreement as the cut-off for any extension request, but legislation can be amended as long as it's agreed by the UK Parliament and the EU Parliament. And the EU Parliament are not going to say no, then it's not a problem. What they're doing now is nailing their colours to the mast. They're not saying that we can still go through with a hard Brexit despite the pandemic. They're saying that the pandemic makes it an even better idea. Even better, they're saying. That means that it's impossible to justify any extension from this point on without suffering very likely fatal political damage. Sure, I know ministers will say one thing and then deny ever saying it. Matt Hancock said a month ago that we'd be testing 25,000 people a day by now. When he was asked this week, he denies ever having said that, despite it being in an official press release from his department. But the Tory news rags will back up that sort of denial. They won't shine a spotlight on that. I don't see the Telegraph or the Mail backing an extension to the transition period. They want the country to burn. And they will be merciless in bringing this statement back up should the government chicken out and try and request an extension at any point in the future. If the government were even thinking about an extension, but not wanting to admit it to it just now, what they'd have said instead is there's no reason to extend. I see no reason to extend. Yes, I know we're going to suffer economically because of the coronavirus. I don't actually see any evidence at the moment that that means we should delay our negotiations. That would give them room to manoeuvre when the situation gets worse, because then in a month's time they could go, it's got a bit worse. Maybe we should extend the transition period now. This is unexpected. But no, they've not allowed themselves to do that, because if it gets worse, bear in mind, with the situation as bad as it is now, they're saying that makes it a better idea to go for a hard Brexit. So if the situation worsens, well, it's an even better idea then, surely. The only small chink that I can see, and it is tiny, is that this statement was delivered by a spokesperson at a time when the Prime Minister was not actively involved. There could be some later denial about who authorised it, but I wouldn't pin any hopes on that because, one, it will have been Dominic Raab, but two, he said as much a few weeks ago in Parliament before it sort of shut itself off. So Dominic Raab at least would have to take the fall for this. He's not likely to be willing to do that. So no, I think at this point they're actually insane. The only thing that is now going to avert the hard Brexit is going to be Parliament, including Johnson's shiny new majority. As the year goes on, we'll just have to see what Parliament does about it and if any of those Tory backbenchers start to get itchy feet. But I'm not hopeful. So there we are. That is the situation now. They are definitely intending us to go for the hard Brexit. All that remains now is what pressure can we put on them to change their minds. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.